Hi, this is Jeff Lesher with What's the Point? And as I promised, or if you're a certain member of the audience threatened last week, we're going to take a look at our ongoing primary focus of these conversations, leaders, their leadership, and the ability they have to rally people around common objectives and to be successful in the outcomes and to be successful in achieving those outcomes in ways that are consistent with their brand, with what they believe in, with what's good from their perspective. And we're going to view this through the lens of reality that is all around us right now, in the US anyway, and I suspect many places around the world, based on the US presidential election and the two candidates who are vying for the office of president. And it calls to mind a number of things, this contest and the participants in the contest, because historically, as I've worked with organizations for over 20 years, I've heard people say, at the beginning of the conversation we're having anyway, that as long as my people get the result, doesn't matter how they do it. They say that sometimes directly and more often in so many words. Until we begin to have a conversation about it. And you ask, well, in this role, in this setting, would they need to be able to access a particular competency, not just get the results? Yes. Would you look for them to do their work in a particular way, like, one that builds consensus or that doesn't, torch your environment or something, either positively, ideally, or at least against the negative? And the answer is, well, of course it would matter. Of course I wouldn't want them to do that. So then you can't have really good performers, which they'll often tell you they do have, who are only getting the results and are only getting the results at the expense, not in spite of, but at the expense of the very values, the very cornerstones of your brand that you really value at least as much as the outcomes. Now, this is not to say that we can be unsuccessful over an extended period of time in getting the outcomes we need, but that if we believe in our cornerstone principles, the methods of our process and the way in which we do our work, then we can't be good unless we're doing those things and getting the results. We can't be good unless we get the results and do things in that way. So if you were to look at the candidates for president and say, well, but I agree with his policy, and you all know who I'm talking about here, but I don't like the way he goes about his business. I don't like the lies that he tells. I don't like the really nasty and inappropriate things that he says about people, including people in positions of responsibility, also elected to serve in their office. And I don't really like the outcomes of a lot of all this because, I don't know, people are dying. People are without money to pay their rent or to feed their families, et cetera, et cetera. So is the person really doing a better job? Do you really agree with the policy and therefore none of that matters? See, for most people, that's a really hard case to make. If you're going to make that choice anyway, you at least have to be honest with yourself. And by the way, on the other side of the coin, you could be saying the same thing, like, I'm not sure I agree with all the policy, but at least I like the way the person is conducting themselves. That's not an ideal candidate. It is a better candidate. In other words, it's easier to adjust to the policy than it is to the behavior. You can't really change that at this point, especially when we're talking about two human beings who are well into their 7th decade of life, that somehow they're going to have this epiphany and be different people. One actually tell the truth and abide by standards, both normative standards and legal, policy issued edict standards, or somebody who is clearly stronger in that vein and who may be aligned with people who are promoting policy that you don't believe in. If you had to make a choice between the two, and oh, by the way, you do, which one would you pick? You would pick the one that you could develop, the one that you could influence the policy of, versus the one you can't change the behavior of. Does it matter? Only you can answer that question. But if you were hiring somebody for your business, or if you were choosing to work for somebody like one of these people, it's a hard case to make. And I am confident the vast majority of you would not ultimately seek to make this case, that you would choose one of these people. You would choose one, but you wouldn't choose that one. You wouldn't, because you're not going to work for or with somebody who lies, who distorts the facts, who breaks the law, who violates the norms, who is basically in evidence every day a bad person, is a bad person. You would not work for that person. You would not allow that person to work for you. So as you build your business, keep those points of guidance in mind. As you seek to restore your country and the principles that it stands for, think about it. I'm not disagreeing that from a policy perspective, we can be concerned about electing Joe Biden. We can be. And we'll have the opportunity legislatively to fight for those things that we believe in. But not doing so, not choosing that fight, and allowing somebody who has clearly demonstrated that he doesn't understand or respect any element of our democracy, and could give that person 4 more years to tear that democracy down. That's just a bad choice. And it's not one that we would ever make in any other context, so let's not make it here. That's the point.